What I'm about to tell you could stop you from making one of the most dangerous health decisions of your life. Somewhere right now, a senior is looking at a bottle labeled blood sugar support, reading the words natural, herbal, doctor formulated, and believing they've found the answer that medicine never gave them. And somewhere else, another person is lowering their insulin, skipping their prescription, trusting a cinnamon capsule or an internet tea blend, and moving quietly toward kidney damage, nerve damage, even a medical emergency they never saw coming. I need you to stay with me, because by the end of this video you're going to understand exactly why the most seductive diabetes promise online is also one of the most dangerous. I'm Dr. Luna Ellison, and after more than 2 decades caring for patients with heart and metabolic disease, I can tell you this with absolute clarity. The phrase natural diabetes cure has misled more vulnerable people than almost any other health claim I see online. Before we begin, please subscribe to this channel for clear life-saving health guidance that protects you and your family weekly. Now, I need to be very precise. Some herbs and supplements may have small effects on blood sugar in some people. That part is real. But the leap from small effect to replacement for insulin or medication, that's where lives get wrecked. And mistake number 1, the most dangerous belief of all, is probably not the one you think. Before I show you myth number 9, you need to understand the core problem, because it changes everything. Diabetes is not just one thing. It is not one number, not one cause, not one treatment. Type 1 diabetes is a condition where the body can make little or no insulin. Type 2 diabetes is different. The body often still makes insulin, especially early on, but it doesn't use it well. Some people are dealing with prediabetes. Some have long-standing type 2. Some are already on insulin because their pancreas can't keep up anymore. So when someone on the internet says, "This herb reverses diabetes," they're flattening an entire medical reality into one dangerous sentence. And that's where the trouble starts. Let me tell you about Eleanor, because her story reveals myth number 9, and it's a myth that sounds harmless until you see the damage. Eleanor was 72, bright, careful, the kind of woman who read labels and clipped health articles from magazines. She found a supplement online with leaves on the bottle, gold lettering, a smiling couple in their 70s, and the word supports healthy glucose naturally. She told herself, if it's natural, it has to be gentler than medicine. So she took it. Then she added an herbal tea. Then another capsule her neighbor recommended. 3 products, all natural, all over the counter, all purchased without fear. That word natural gave her a false sense of safety that no evidence had ever earned. At first, Eleanor felt proud. She was doing something proactive. She was taking control. But within weeks, she started having stomach upset, dizziness, and then episodes of shakiness in the afternoon. Her doctor eventually discovered she hadn't replaced nothing. She had layered unmonitored supplements on top of her prescribed medication. Her blood sugar was dipping low some days and running high on others. Why? Because natural does not mean predictable. Natural does not mean weak. Natural does not mean tested in the way people imagine. Some supplements interact with medications. Some affect the liver. Some affect the kidneys. Some do almost nothing. And some, contain ingredients you never intended to take in the first place. Myth number 9 is believing that natural automatically means safe. Now here's the part almost nobody tells seniors clearly enough. Poison ivy is natural. Hemlock is natural. Tobacco is natural. Nature is not a synonym for harmless. And in diabetes, that misunderstanding can become deadly because blood sugar control is not a hobby experiment. It is a delicate medical balance involving food, activity, kidney function, sleep, stress, medications, and in many people, insulin itself. So when a bottle whispers, "Try me, I'm only herbs," what it is really asking you to do is lower your guard. And once your guard drops, you become vulnerable to the next myth. Myth number 8, which is the one that traps people the moment they see a better number on a glucose meter. Myth number 8 is this: if your blood sugar drops, your diabetes has been reversed. Let me tell you about Robert, 69 years old, retired electrician, fiercely independent. Robert started walking after dinner, cut back on soda, lost a little weight, and began taking a supplement a friend swore by. 2 weeks later, his fasting numbers were better. Not perfect, but better. And that improvement did something psychologically powerful. It convinced him he had solved the problem. He told his wife, "I think I've beaten this." Then he started skipping doses of his medication. On the mornings, his meter looked good. It felt logical. Why take medicine for a problem that seemed to be disappearing? But blood sugar is a snapshot, not a verdict. One good reading is not a cure. One good week is not remission. One lower fasting number does not tell you what your body is doing after meals, overnight, or over the course of 3 months. That is why we use patterns. That is why A1C matters. That is why context matters. Robert's morning numbers looked encouraging, but his after-dinner spikes were still high. His A1C was still elevated. His nerves and blood vessels didn't care that he had a few pretty readings in a notebook. They were still being exposed to damage over time. Myth number 8 is confusing improvement with reversal, and that confusion leads directly to undertreatment. Here is the sentence I wish every person with diabetes could hear before they ever buy a supplement. Lower is not the same as healed. Controlled is not the same as cured. Better is not the same as gone. Diabetes management can absolutely improve, sometimes dramatically. Some people with type 2 can even reach remission under the right circumstances. But remission is a medical concept with conditions, follow-up, and ongoing risk. It is not a magic doorway you walk through, because a capsule helped your fasting sugar by 15 points for 10 days. And if you misunderstand that, you become vulnerable to myth number 7, which is one of the most dangerous errors in the entire diabetes conversation. Myth number 7 is believing type 1 and type 2 diabetes are basically the same problem, so the same natural fix should work for both. Let me tell you about Maria's brother, Daniel, because this one still haunts me. Daniel was 63 and had lived with diabetes for years. A relative sent him video after video insisting insulin was the real problem, not the solution. Your body is just over-medicated, they told him. You need to heal it naturally. The language was confident. The testimonials were emotional. The promises were absolute. And Daniel, like many intelligent people facing a chronic illness, was tired. Tired people are vulnerable to certainty. So he started listening. What Daniel either didn't fully understand or had been persuaded to ignore was that his situation was not optional biology. He needed insulin. Without enough insulin in the body, glucose cannot move properly into cells for energy. Blood sugar rises, the body starts breaking down fat rapidly. Ketones build up, and a medical emergency can develop. This is not philosophy, this is physiology. You cannot motivate your pancreas with wishful thinking if it is no longer able to do what your body needs. You cannot meditate away insulin deficiency. You cannot out-supplement a missing hormone. And that is exactly why sweeping anti-insulin messaging is so reckless. Even in type 2 diabetes, the picture can become far more complex than people realize. Some individuals with type 2 eventually need insulin because the pancreas simply cannot keep up anymore. Others need it temporarily during illness, surgery, or periods of very high blood sugar. Insulin is not a sign of failure. It is not punishment. It is not surrender. It is a tool. Sometimes it is a temporary bridge. Sometimes it is life-saving long-term treatment. The internet has turned insulin into an emotional symbol when it is actually a medical instrument. And once people start fearing the tool that protects them, they become easy prey for the next lie. Myth number 6, which sounds modern, clean, and trustworthy. Myth number 6 is believing that if a supplement is sold online, packaged beautifully, and endorsed by influencers, somebody important must have verified it. Let me tell you about Leonard, 75, who bought a so-called blood sugar breakthrough formula after seeing glowing reviews and a video that used words like breakthrough, science-backed, and hidden secret. The bottle looked premium. The website had diagrams, white coats, testimonials, and before and after numbers. It felt legitimate. Leonard assumed that if something could be sold so openly, then someone somewhere had made sure it was safe, honest, and exactly what the label claimed. That assumption is where the danger began. Weeks later, Leonard's readings were erratic in a way that made no sense. Some days he felt weak and sweaty. Other days he felt thirsty and exhausted. He thought the supplement was detoxing him because that's what the website had warned might happen. But what he was really experiencing was uncontrolled unpredictability. This is the hidden problem with many products marketed to people with chronic disease. The label may not tell the full story. Some products have been found to contain undisclosed drug ingredients. Some are contaminated. Some vary wildly from batch to batch. Some are marketed illegally with cure language precisely because fear sells, and regulation often arrives after the harm. Think about how dangerous that is in diabetes. A person may believe they are choosing a gentle herb, when in reality they may be taking an undeclared pharmaceutical, an inconsistent dose, or a compound that strains an organ already vulnerable to diabetic complications. And the tragedy is not only what's inside the bottle. The deeper tragedy is what happens psychologically once someone buys it. They delay. They postpone real care. They tell themselves, let me just see if this works first. And time is exactly what diabetes quietly steals when it is poorly controlled. That brings us to myth number 5, the myth people invoke most often because it contains a tiny grain of truth. Myth number 5 is that because some herbs have shown possible benefits in some studies, they must work better than diabetes medications. This is where people mention cinnamon, berberine, bittermelon, fenugreek, gymnema, and other familiar names. And I need to be very fair here, because fairness matters. Some of these substances have been studied. Some have shown modest improvements in certain markers in some groups of people. That part is worth knowing. But modest, inconsistent, adjunctive findings are not the same as superiority. A possible assist is not a replacement. And that difference, small as it sounds, separates responsible health guidance from dangerous fantasy. Let me tell you about Carol, 71, who heard that cinnamon works like insulin. That phrase spread through her church group until it sounded almost like settled science. Carol began sprinkling more cinnamon on food, then taking capsules, then gradually convincing herself she could be more relaxed about the rest of her plan. Her meals got sloppier. Her exercise dropped off. Her medication routine became inconsistent because she had emotionally transferred her trust from a comprehensive treatment plan to a spice. And that, is what false hope often does. It doesn't just add one thing. It silently weakens the proven things that were already helping. Here's the physiology no clickbait title wants to explain. Diabetes medications are studied for dose, effect, safety, outcomes, side effects, interactions, and in many cases protection against complications beyond just glucose numbers. Some reduce cardiovascular risk, some help the kidneys, some help with weight, some are essential for survival. Herbs and supplements, even the more promising ones, generally do not have the same level of evidence, consistency, manufacturing control, or long-term outcome data. So even if a supplement helps a bit, the leap to better than medication is not just unsupported, it is medically irresponsible. And once people believe it, they slip into myth number 4 almost automatically. Myth number 4 is that the moment your numbers start improving, you should cut back your medication on your own. This one harms people because it disguises itself as common sense. Why keep taking something you might not need? It sounds reasonable, it feels efficient, it gives people a sense of empowerment. But diabetes treatment is not supposed to be adjusted emotionally. It is supposed to be adjusted based on patterns, risk, supervision, and an understanding of what caused the improvement in the first place. Let me tell you about James, 67, who lost weight, started eating differently, and saw real progress. That progress was wonderful. It was also, exactly the moment he became vulnerable. James decided that because he was doing great, he could stop one of his medications before discussing it with his clinician. For a short time, nothing dramatic happened. That false calm reassured him. Then the numbers began creeping up again. Slowly at first. That is how diabetes often moves when it is poorly managed. Not with a trumpet, but with a whisper. His fasting sugar worsened, his energy dipped, and by the time his next formal labs were checked, months of good work had been partially undone. The medication may very well have been ready for reduction, but reduction is not the same as guessing. The danger was not hope. The danger was unsupervised interpretation. This is what I want every viewer to understand. If your glucose improves because you're losing weight, moving more, eating differently, sleeping better, taking medication properly, and yes, maybe even adding an adjunct your clinician approves, that is excellent. That is progress. That is something to celebrate. But when treatment changes are needed, the safest question is not, can I stop this now? The safest question is, given my patterns, what should change and by how much? That is a medical decision. It depends on your history, your risk of low blood sugar, your kidney function, your A1C, your age, your goals, and your other conditions. Diabetes rewards humility, not improvisation. Now let me show you myth number 3, because this is where supplement marketing becomes especially cruel to seniors. Myth number 3 is believing supplements are separate from your medical life. People think of them as extras, side notes, harmless add-ons. Prescription drugs feel serious. Supplements feel casual, so they forget to mention them to doctors. They do not bring the bottles to appointments. They do not list them on medication forms. And that secrecy is not always intentional. Often it's just because supplements are mentally filed under vitamins, not treatment. Let me tell you about Helen, 78, who was taking a glucose support capsule, a liver cleanse powder, magnesium, tea extracts, and her prescribed diabetes medication, all at once. Helen didn't think any of it mattered because they're just natural products, but she also had reduced kidney function, mild liver abnormalities, and occasional poor appetite. In other words, the exact kind of body that needs more caution, not less. When she started feeling weak and nauseated, it was hard to tell what was causing what. Was it the medication, the supplement, the combination, dehydration, her kidneys, her glucose swings? This is why healthcare professionals want the full list. Not because they want to take away your choices, but because bodies do not care whether a molecule came from a pharmacy or a plant. Your organs still have to process it, and interactions do not ask permission. This is especially important for older adults because diabetes rarely travels alone. Many seniors are also managing blood pressure, cholesterol, heart disease, sleep issues, arthritis, or kidney concerns. The more moving parts you add, the more careful you must become. A supplement that seems harmless in a healthy younger person may be far less harmless in someone with multiple medications and reduced organ reserve. And here's the heartbreaking part. Many people only learn this after something goes wrong. They learn it after dizziness, after a fall, after unexplained lab changes, after days of feeling awful for reasons no one can untangle quickly. That is why myth number 3 is so dangerous. It hides inside the word just. Now we arrive at myth number 2, and this myth is pure emotional manipulation. Myth number 2 is believing personal testimonials are stronger than evidence. You've seen them. My uncle threw away his insulin. My neighbor's A1C dropped in 2 weeks. This woman reversed her diabetes with one herb doctors don't want you to know about. These stories are persuasive because they feel human, and humans are wired to trust stories. We remember faces more than data. We remember tears more than trial design. That's normal. But normal human psychology becomes a trap when chronic illness is involved. Let me tell you about Samuel, because he nearly made a terrible decision after watching one video. Samuel was 74 and lonely after losing his wife. He spent evenings online, scrolling health videos because he wanted hope, company, and control. Then he found a testimonial from a man his age who spoke with total conviction. Same generation, same worries, same frustration with prescriptions, same dream of being free. Samuel didn't just hear medical advice. He felt seen, and that emotional connection made the message far more powerful than it deserved to be. This is why testimonial-based health marketing is so effective. It bypasses skepticism. It whispers, this person is like you, so his outcome can be yours. But a testimony cannot tell you diagnosis accuracy, other treatments, adherence, lab history, or what happened 6 months later. And that is the crucial point. Evidence asks hard questions. Testimonial marketing avoids them. Evidence looks for consistency, comparison, side effects, durability, and who the treatment actually works for. Testimonials usually show the best story, the cleanest arc, the happiest face, and the least complexity. Diabetes, unfortunately, is all complexity. So when someone says, "This worked for me," the proper medical response is not automatic dismissal, but neither is it automatic adoption. The right response is curiosity plus caution. Maybe something helped. Maybe something changed at the same time. Maybe the story is incomplete. Maybe the person was never comparing like with like. And now, we've arrived at myth number 1. Myth number 1, the most dangerous belief in this entire conversation, is thinking the word reverse means cure. That single misunderstanding has harmed more people than almost any herb itself, because once people hear cure, they relax their vigilance, they stop monitoring, they start negotiating with reality, they assume the risk has disappeared. But diabetes does not work that way. In some people with type 2 diabetes, blood sugar can improve so much that it falls below the diabetes range without glucose-lowering medication for a period of time. That is an extraordinary achievement. It deserves celebration. But it is not the same as saying the underlying vulnerability vanished forever, and it is absolutely not the same as saying herbs did it better than medical care. Let me tell you about Denise, 66, who lost a significant amount of weight, changed how she ate, became more active, and under close medical supervision eventually came off some of her medication. Her blood tests improved beautifully. She was thrilled, and rightly so, but the smartest thing Denise did was this. She did not turn success into denial. She kept follow-up appointments. She kept checking. She understood that remission, when it happens, is something to protect, not something to brag about and then abandon. That humility kept her safe. She did not say, "I'm cured." She said, "I've made major progress, and I need to keep honoring the habits that got me here." That is what real victory sounds like. So what actually deserves your trust if you are trying to improve blood sugar safely? First, know exactly which form of diabetes you have, because that changes everything. Second, never stop insulin on your own. And never assume insulin means failure. Third, if you want to try a supplement, treat it like a medical decision, not a grocery decision. Bring the exact bottle to your clinician. Fourth, focus your biggest energy on the things with the strongest track record: sustainable eating changes, weight loss when appropriate, physical activity, sleep, medication adherence, stress management, regular follow-up, and real lab monitoring. Those things are less glamorous than miracle herbs, but they are where the biggest wins usually happen. Fifth, if a supplement is being considered, ask the only questions that matter. What is the evidence? How big is the effect? For which patients? At what dose? What are the side effects? Could it interact with my current treatment? What are my kidneys like? My liver? My age-related risks? Is the product quality verified? And most importantly, what should I watch for if I start it? Low blood sugar? Digestive problems? Lab changes? False reassurance? Because the goal is never to chase novelty. The goal is to protect your eyes, your kidneys, your heart, your brain, your nerves, and your independence for as many years as possible. That, is what diabetes management is really about. Let me give you the practical rule I wish every viewer would write down and stick to the refrigerator. If something is presented as an addition to your plan, evaluate it carefully. If something is presented as a replacement for insulin or a replacement for proven treatment, your danger alarm should go off immediately. If a product uses the words secret, cure, reverse overnight, doctor hate, pharmaceutical conspiracy, or ancient remedy they don't want you to know, step back. Real medicine can be imperfect, yes. Frustrating, absolutely, but desperate language is not evidence. Urgency can save lives when it is honest. Marketing urgency is designed to empty wallets and delay care. Before we finish, I want to tell you about Walter, because his story brings all of this together. Walter was 73, stubborn, funny, skeptical of everything, including doctors. He hated the idea of being on pills forever. So when he saw a natural blood sugar program promising freedom, he was ready to believe it. But instead of quietly changing everything on his own, he did one brilliant thing. He brought the product to his appointment. We talked through it. We talked through his labs, his goals, his kidney function, his medications, his diet, his weight, his daily routine, his sleep, and what he really wanted most. Freedom was not actually what he wanted. What he wanted was safety without feeling powerless. Once we understood that, everything changed. We simplified his plan. We adjusted his meals. He started walking consistently. He lost weight gradually. He stopped chasing miracle claims. He monitored the right numbers. He kept one clinician-approved supplement and dropped the nonsense. Over time, his glucose improved, his confidence returned, and some of his treatment was adjusted responsibly. Not because he rejected medicine, but because he finally worked with reality instead of against it. That is the difference between hope and fantasy. Fantasy tells you to throw away the tools that keep you safe. Real hope teaches you how to use them wisely, until your health becomes steadier, calmer, and more predictable. So if you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. Herbs are not automatically useless, but they are also not magic. Some may help a little in some situations. None deserve blind trust. None should push you away from evidence-based care. And anything that tells you to forget insulin, fear your doctor, or replace a proven plan with a bottle and a promise is not empowerment. It is a gamble with very high stakes. Your blood sugar is not just a number. It is a signal tied to your brain, heart, kidneys, vision, mobility, and future. Protect it seriously, and protect yourself from anyone who profits by making serious disease sound simple. If this video helped you separate truth from hype, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who's been tempted by a so-called natural diabetes cure, and leave a comment telling me which myth surprised you most. I make these videos because too many seniors are trying to navigate dangerous health decisions alone, and you should not have to do that. You deserve explanations that are clear, honest, and grounded in reality, not fear-based marketing. Take care of yourself, stay cautious with miracle claims, stay open to real progress, and I'll see you in the next video.